forever, but I apologize. So next we have Mouad Faitour from the Department of Religion at University of Georgia, who will be discussing from post-colonial leftists to post-Arab Spring Islamists, the Moroccan monarchy's strategic maneuverings.
Thank you.
I don't think we're going to-
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Oh, let me see if we... Can I take this? Hello. So, hello everyone. Good afternoon. And I know we just have had lunch, and it might be sometimes we get tired and you might want to sleep, but just bear with us for a bit. So, thank you so much for inviting us to this, and thank you so much for organizing it, and thank you so much for bringing such amazing and distinguished people to share their knowledge with us. So, as you see, yes, thank you. My presentation today, it's a paper that I have been working on since the beginning of the year, and it's from post-colonial leftists to post-Arab Spring Islamists, the Moroccan regime strategic maneuvering. So basically, it's here, it's we are dealing with an institution. I think no, I'm not changing anything now. Can we go back to the first slide? So it's basically we are dealing with something that once I see you as I perceive you as a threat, so we're gonna use strategic maneuverings, and I used as an approach this carrot and stick approach. I involve you, and then I give you the carrot, then I can give you the stick later on. So, and basically here we have the issue with in post-colonial Morocco, leftists, as you know, in the region, it was 1956. It was a challenge to all monarchies in Africa and in the MENA region. So the Moroccan monarchy, Hassan II, tried his best to push away the seculars, not to be in to have the power. So how to do that? You use Islamists. What you did is that you just borrowed all these guys coming from Saudi Arabia. So and Saudi Arabia give you these Wahhabis. Now, because you are perceived as a threat. Now with, you know, can we go to the move to the other slide? Please. And here in an article I was working on, which is basically also, it's still the maneuvering, which is how now the Moroccan monarchy is working on like moving from Salafism to Sufism as like a kind of like a global trend. All these countries rejecting Salafism. So the Moroccan monarchy, we are not surprised that he puts Sufism as on the facade of what we call reforming Moroccan Islam as a third element of the reforms. So you find this type of jurisprudence, kind of like Maliki jurisprudence, which they consider as kind of like moderate, but Abu Hanifa remains top. And then they say Sufism is the state kind of like institutionalized form of Islam, kind of like now we are moving away from Salafism, which they before were pushing it. So now they move to what is called Sufism and promoting it in institutions, and King Hassan Muhammad VI, the current king, has been applying that. So the thing is, why I am just referring to this, many of the guests here and the speakers were talking how this is really affecting us. Democracy is really affecting us. As someone who recently moved to Turkey to live with my wife there after graduation last year from University of Georgia, you feel like the situation is going crazy there. In Morocco is the same. In the US, with what you see, the students and all, they are trying to just make people, you know, don't speak. As the Turkish people, the first thing when I came, I learned konuşma, don't talk. So whenever I go to these, you know, interviews for a job, one of the things I didn't, in Morocco, even Morocco, I never thought, it never came to me. But after you finish an interview, sometimes they tell you, are you affiliated with the Gulenists? And then the Gulenists, you can do a brief research on what the Gulenists are, but it's basically the opponents of Erdogan. They were friends, Gulen, Fathullah Gulen, who died, may God bless his soul. But it's an issue. It's a very big issue there. So, and for these regimes, democracy is a big issue. So democracy is a big issue. It threatens people. That's why I feel like Donald Trump went and took all that money, because these people didn't want to implement democracy. So he got all their money from there. So you don't want democracy? Let me get, your money. So I put you there secured. Don't be afraid from your own people. Can we move to the other slide, please? Oh, can we move? Oh, yes. And here, when we are talking about the power of the king, it's very important to notice that here is the power of the monarchy, to know that when you say that Morocco is kind of like, as a parliamentary democracy in Article 1, so the king actually holds an overriding authority, military commander, and then has this cabinet, hold cabinet's leadership, the power to dismiss parliamentary, and then he has this dahir, which is like basically a veto that can stand against all these ministers or even the head of the government. And also you have religious authority, which is the commander of faithful. The king in Morocco is called the Amirul Mu'mineen. What does that tell us? Like, is a blow to the secularists and also to the Islamists. What does that mean? Don't even, for the secularists that they are pushing for the state and religion separation, don't talk about that. It's up to me. I am the commander of the faithful. And for those opposing him from the Islamists, Salafists, Wahhabites, you can't come with anything. When I do these religious reforms, which happened in 2004 after the terrorist attack in Casablanca, my city, in my neighborhood close to me, so the king came with a lot of reforms which the Salafists and Wahhabis were not happy with. Don't talk, konishma, as the Turkish people say. It's the king, Amirul Mu'mineen, who can decide. So the seculars don't talk, so the Islamists and conservatives don't talk about any of the king's decision. He is Amirul Mu'mineen. So, and then what happens is that it feels like sorry, I can go back to the other slide, is that what happens is that the head of governments, what happens to them is that they stay with symbolic authority. Nothing. Because even in this 2011 constitution, the king still holds the Ministry of Interior, the head of it. And then Foreign Affairs, he's the one in charge of it. And Ministry of Justice and Islamic Affairs. These are all called ministries of sovereignty. Meaning that it's the king who hires them. And the head of government can't have any say about them. So he hires them and they can stay for 18 years, for 15 years. So basically, with all this entrenched power, including this is non-constitutional, by the way, that you can hire them, that you can put these ministers, even if politically non-affiliated, but still you go there. This is maneuvering. All of this is called maneuvering, democracy and maneuvering. We can go to the other slide thing. And here, what you come out with that conclusion that before trying to see what democracy is, and especially in countries like us, it's very important to see that you look beyond what elections and to see what is structuring that power. And in here, for example, you see that most of these, the leftists, for example, in 1998, these leftists were really causing a lot of problems to the King Hassan II before, after post-independence. Finally, he included them. But he included them in what? In times of crisis. That time it was called the cardiac attack of the country. The country was about to have a heart attack. No, the economic situation was crazy. Everything was going down. Then the king finally, and after 3 failed attempts, military coup. Do you know what was happening in the post-independence era in the MENA region in Africa? The king was lucky to survive 3 attempted military coup. And then he brought the leftists, and they stayed from 1998 till 2002. But there was a promise. The monarchy had a promise with the leftists that we would transition to. We would transition to something called, democracy. It's called the government of alternance. Hold on now. We have been fighting for more than 4 decades, but we can now. I involve you. You become Idris Yousfi was the prime minister, and then he put him there on the condition that we will transition to a democracy later on. Just hold on. But the king was dying. He wanted someone to just. He wanted the new king, which is now the current one, King Mohammed VI, to transition to power without the leftists fighting. And then we have the Islamists in the Arab Spring, post-Arab Spring. That's called the storm of the MENA region. So it was really crazy. And then, okay, now we moved from the heart attack from the MENA region. Let's now put them in this called the storm of it. And the king was very smart because he was looking and seeing what's happening and was observing exactly in Tunis and then in Libya and then all these moments of crisis. Let me put now the Islamists. Maybe they would fix something. And then the Islamists came for over a decade. But it was all of this giving you the stick. But you can't do anything. It's me who is involved in everything. But it could be direct, it could be indirect through the coalition. The coalition, all of them are the palace supporters, not you. And then after you feel like you are there, you're promising, the leftists were promising, the Islamists were promising, then when they saw that they can't do anything, there is no power, what happens is that they started to get closer to the king. And then this is also another way of maneuvering when you get closer to the king, so people would see that you can't trust these guys. The only person we can trust is the monarch. And then especially when the monarch start implementing big reforms like human rights reforms. We have some feminist women's rights reforms like Mudawana, that we're going to come to these ones. I hope I have time for this. Can we move to the other slide, please? And then here we have, I am not denying that we have, when you come to the MENA region, people talk about how Morocco is an exception, but the thing is, all this exception of Morocco is often moderate Islam, we have this reformist monarchy, we have these things that talks about including women as becoming female scholars, something in the region is a new thing. This is all after the 2003 bombing attacks. The king is all doing this. But what? It's also a way that polishes his image in Western policy circles, that he is a reformist king. And some of these reforms, which we will come to, I hope, some of these reforms, I remember that a lot of leftists were fighting for some reforms, that they keep fighting for them from 1998 till like 2002, and they were not implemented until they left. So the credits will be for the king, not for them. And that's how it works. And then I was just talking about how sometimes we have this, I took this quote, I can just go back to this quote. Sometimes we see these optimistic interpretations of liberalizing reforms like Mudawana, the new family code. There are making women female scholars in the MENA region as women, as scholars. This is something new. You don't find it in the Arab world. Only you have like female women women religious guides, for example. These are all, they look like liberalizing, but underneath them there is an entrenching authority and authoritarian rule in them. That's what's happening. That's it. Can I do a conclusion or something? Oh, let me see. Let me just choose the. Can we? And then just probably 1 or 2 minutes, I would say, like, what is the stick for this party? When I mean the USVP, this is a socialist party, that's a leftist party. They were all the reforms. They were included as a carrot after they have been under repression, and then when they came to power, all of the reforms will not implemented, as I said, until they left, so credits are not for them. And also, that government, they were promised to transition to democracy, which is government of alternist government. The Moroccan Monarchy in 2002, when they even succeeded, he just chose a technocrat. He was like, I'm sorry, the country is going in a crisis, blah, blah, blah. We need to give a technocrat. Even if they were the top, that they got the elections, they got all this election. And then 1 more minute, it's about the stick for the Islamists. The stick for the Islamists is that what happened is that Islamists also came in this just to help the crisis of what's going on in the Middle East and the Arab Spring. And then what he did is that a lot of palace affiliated parties, the king wanted them to be in the government of Abdullah ibn Kiran, which is an Islamist. And then he refused. Then what the king did in 2017 is that he dismissed him. And then Islamists, Morocco is still conservative, but during the Islamists, the king forced the Islamist head of government to sign the normalization treaty with Israel. That was their final stick. And the year after that, in 2021, they got only how many votes? 13 out of 126 before. So then liberals came. I'm sorry, it took some time. Well, thank you so much.